Alright, so, hey Odin boys, hope you're doing well. Now in today's video, going to be doing my first video on the deer with the brand new Jormungandr, and at this point in time I've actually done a couple of runs with this unit, and boy oh boy am I impressed. I've used a couple different teams now, and I'm not going to spoil that in this one. We do have a couple more videos actually coming out on the deer, but it is absolutely crazy what this unit is capable of. And in this first one I do just use my regular team with Jormungandr. This is actually going to be a voiceover, so I'm not going to be doing these live just because I usually prefer to do these demonic beast battles, talk about them after, because I mean, especially the deer, for example, the RNG on some of these phases can be so harsh and so punishing, to the point where it can get a little frustrating or a little time consuming, and I don't want to have you guys, hearing me say the same things over and over again, and it can get a little lengthy and a little bit boring. But let's quickly jump into the first floor here and we'll have a look, see what we can do. But here we go, this is a team I'm going to be using. Once again, just your typical old school team, and replacing the Arthur with the brand new Jormungandr. And honestly, throughout this whole first attempt, I barely knew how Jormungandr worked, and don't get me wrong, she has an extremely confusing passive. Her, and on the JP version at the moment, they have a brand new timer that's come out. Even his passive and some things like that can be so difficult to understand. His blue card, I think it is so difficult, but kind of just getting used to the Jormungandr in these first couple, and boy oh boy does she make such a big difference. If you guys are considering whether or not you should summon on the banner, please, I promise you won't regret it. Go ahead, at least see if you can get the one copy, because she's one of those units, exactly like the Red Matrona for example, that you really don't need any dupes to get the full effect out of her. She's going to be putting as much work in at 1/6 as she is going to be at 6/6. Granted, having a couple extra ult gauge is fairly nice, but with how strong her passive is, most of the time, once you have a fully built up passive-wise, you're going to be hitting damage cap anyways, and yeah, you get like a slight damage increase when it comes to the actual buffing of your allies. If you guys don't know how the ultimate works, basically it is a single target ultimate and then increases all of your allies' damage by a certain amount. So yeah, don't get me wrong, it is nice, but once again, don't really need any dupes for her. Wouldn't go ahead and fish for them or anything, and even if you know you don't have enough materials to make UR gear for her, you can easily go ahead and use like an SSR set, or even just like a UR set that you have from another character. Slap it on her. You do get free cosmetics from the Croc Shell event that is currently out as well, so you can go ahead and use those. Getting into the phase 2 here, which is the first phase where we have to go ahead and use the cycle mechanic, but due to the fact we have Trader Melon, you don't have to actually cycle. And get that, you guys know what I'm talking about, where you have to use the 3 cards and then they remove the damage nullification, or like the damage reduction, so we can go ahead and use that melee card and get a whole bunch of extra damage there. This whole first floor is such a cakewalk, and honestly, majority of the time I end up having so much more difficulty with the second floor than I do the first and the third. I feel like the third is fairly easy, especially when it comes to the whole passive side of things. Pretty much all of the passives are good and easily doable to actually complete it, but look at that. 500,000 damage off a level 1 Escanor card. Even end up underlining it there, but that is just ridiculous, and that is all through the help of the Jormungandr. This passive here, usually when using the Arthur, I would reset on as well. There is a better passive, it's the spear. The spear with the blue circles around it. Pretty much at the beginning of every turn, the deer starts with an extra 2 ultimate gauge. The deer is always going to get ultimate turn 2, maybe turn 3 if you're really lucky. But yeah, would rather prefer that. You don't end up really seeing the damage anyways. You get through these phases oh so quickly, and with all of the lifesteal that you actually get from her passive and one of her cards, where unfortunately not holding the card at the moment, we're holding her 2 buff removal cards, you do actually get lifesteal. The level 1 gives, I think it's 30% lifesteal to the character with the lowest HP, and then the 2-star and the 3-star just heal everyone a certain amount of damage. I don't remember all the multipliers just yet, but I can imagine with a little bit more use, we will. Don't know why, actually yeah, holding on to the Matrona card so we can get the cycle going in the next one, and finishing off here pretty easy. You'll see when I do some of these other videos how quickly you get through some of these floors. It is so ridiculous how good this unit is, and so grateful to actually have her on the global version. Deer has just been an absolute struggle for me, and it's one of those pieces of content where, don't get me wrong, Demonic Beast Battle is the greatest PvE content we have in the game. But once I did my deer and got my first time completion rewards for the week, I did not want to see it ever again. Here we go, chucking out those 2 ultimates there and easily finishing off the first floor, which is, as long as you have Escanor, this whole first floor is pretty much a cakewalk. You can substitute the Matrona and Jormungandr out for a couple other characters, and here we go. Onto the second one here. Is there much I want to talk about in the second one? The biggest thing about this second floor I find is in the fourth and final phase, you obviously get your passives on the second and fourth floor. There is 3 passives you can get on the fourth floor, and only one of them is really doable. So I did actually end up taking quite a few tries on this floor, just because I think it was my first 8 attempts at this. I ended up getting the revive passive all of my first 8 attempts, which I was absolutely mind blown by. Like, the chances in that are so low. And that there's the revive one. There is an ultimate reduction one, which you also don't want, because obviously in later floors, you want to be going into the final phase with ultimates to clear it as quick as possible. And the third passive, which is the one you want, is a damage increase one, which once again, you don't really need to worry about. You don't take a crazy amount of damage. We're not taking much damage here as well, because we have the damage reduction from the second half of the melee passive. But you'll see what I mean. In some of my later videos as well, I actually try and go ahead and you do the Haldir with some of the more worst passives. So let's see, are we going to be able to finish here with the melee card? I think we are. I'm still amazed by this unit. Granted, with the actual release of Jormungandr, his efficiency and like how well he works in Dir has definitely dropped off quite a bit. There's a couple extra teams which we are of course going to have a look at. Real unfortunate that we didn't get the kill there. Can't even see the health bar as a matter of fact, but I suppose that does give us a little bit more time. I believe in this next turn we'll go ahead and merge the Escanor cards. Get an Escanor ultimate for that second phase. Did that? Oh no. Okay, yeah, this is another, by the time you've gotten the damage buff on this first phase, really want to move to the next one. If you have buff removal, obviously you can remove it, but I believe one of the AoE cards is an amplify effect and it'll just completely one-tap your team. So getting on to the next one here, and if you guys do have any video suggestions or even team suggestions for PvP, even for the Dir for example, because there are quite a few units and teams that are really viable now, by all means let me know. I'd be super interested in trying a couple of them out. This is the first kind of time we're going to see this. Damage reduction, have to go through the whole cycle. You guys have done Dir before, you know how this content works. Throwing out the Jormungandr card there, and that will get the damage boost. Still going to hit damage cap with Escanor with or without it. 6/6 Escanor is just such an insanely good unit. Don't get me wrong, in PvP he is nowhere near as viable as he has. It is pretty much impossible for the man to hit crits, which almost deems the unit useless. You can use him in the back, especially with the fact he has Holy Relic, and he's a great association. He's still top 5, or at least somewhere in that top 5 range when it comes to CC. That is entirely due to the fact of the Holy Relic. If you can't hit crits with him, he doesn't do damage. In PvE though, the crit resistance is a whole lot lower, and the death effect is just so powerful, especially in these forms of content where there is the damage reduction. I don't know if Escanor will ever not be used. Like, it's so hard to say, especially with how much power creep happens. And look, we've got units like Trader Meliodas and King, and we've even got units like the new Tarmiel on the JP version, which just continues to amaze. Let's see, I threw out the Jormungandr card first, just so we get the extra damage boost. I don't believe there is a damage cap on this third phase. This third phase is extremely tanky, and the main reason for that is just trying to prepare you for that fourth phase. It can be fairly difficult. Only thing that annoys me about the third phase being so tanky is you end up spending so long to get through it, only to get disappointed by the passive you get in the fourth one and having to reset. Let's see, this is going to take a couple turns, that's for sure. And I'm honestly so excited for us to get more Holy Relics for some of these characters. With the team I'm using at the moment, I think we're missing, I think 3 of the units are still missing Holy Relics, so they are some human characters. There is no demons in the team, so don't have to worry about that. The next Demonic Beast battle, I can assure you, is going to be for Demon Holy Relics, which is so exciting. To be able to see units like Trader Meli get a Holy Relic, I feel like he'll be right at the end of the list. But it's still really exciting, even to see units like Festival King, which we are getting Fairy Holy Relics at the moment, but I still don't think we're going to see that anytime soon. He is still way too powerful to be given that anytime soon. We should be able to finish this one off in this next turn. What I'm going to do when it comes to the Escanor ultimate, am I going to just use the double cards? Okay, no, holding out on the Escanor ultimate, we should easily better. Yeah, melee ultimate does so much damage. So only got a 4/6 melee, so next time he comes around, definitely gonna have to get those final 2 dupes for him. I could imagine either next Fest Banner, actually, next Fest Banner is probably gonna be a light type, so I can imagine we will be seeing Meliodas again, so I can finally snag my last couple dupes in him, and once that's done, we're really only missing dupes for Diane, which is unfortunate. I do think we only have a 2/6 But that's right, it'll all come around eventually. Units like Skadi as well, who I only ended up getting the one copy for right at the end, right, you know, as you get the selector at the 600 milestone. I now have 3/6. Miguelda was another unit I really struggled for. She's now 6/6, Brunhild 6/6. You get what I'm saying, these units come around fairly often, and especially the Ragnarok characters, if you don't summon Fjormungandr or you get really unlucky and don't manage to pull her, we see these Ragnarok banners fairly often, so you're not going to completely miss out. But once again, if you have gems, I'd highly incentivize summoning, especially with the fact that we got the Tommy on this next update. We know what we're going to have for the next week. You could potentially chuck in a couple extra gems. I know so many people are saving up for the Slam, and I mean, I would be too, especially if I don't spend money on the game. The collaboration's only rolling around twice. With this being the rerun, it'll probably obviously be our final attempt. Just shy on killing the deer there. I was really scared it was going to go into one of those phases where the deer gets the counter and you're not able to do any damage unless you do the full cycle, because that counter can do so much damage and completely kills runs at certain points, which is why the third floor is so difficult, because once you get into that fourth phase, I believe you have 4 or 5 turns to actually win, or otherwise it is just completely impossible to win. You have to forfeit at that point. But yeah, killing him off here, real easy floor 2. It gets a lot easier. I think this took a matter of, I think it was around like the 12, 13 attempts, this second floor, and I believe we finished the floor 3. I was first or second. Also, absolutely love the victory screen there with the Jormungandr. Getting more of those purple stones, which is really, really nice as well. You can actually go ahead and farm those. It was at the point before I had so many more of the first time clear ones, you know, like the little vase things you can only get, but now that we can actually farm this kind of content, going to be the other way around, really trying to hold on to these materials, because we're getting 4 more holy relics for the archangels in the next coming updates, so definitely something I should have saved up for. Should have gone ahead and made as many fairy holy relics, but it is what it is. Starting off with our typical starting hand here once again, and is there much to talk about in the third floor? That is one thing about the deer that I do really like. You don't have to remember what all of these phases do, as long as you remember that on the 2nd and 4th phase, you have to go through the cycle. That's all you really need to know. Whereas when it comes to bird, you know, in the whole first floor, you have the final phase, which has the massive damage reduction, so you have to use the power strike cards. In the second floor, I think it's phase 2, you have the one where if you're not using a taunt card, you take massive damage. And then the 4th one, I think it is. Anyway, you guys get what I mean. There's so many different things to remember. There's certain ones that have card deletion, all that kind of stuff. The deer is a little bit more simple. I would say I probably still prefer the Birders content. Having those more difficult things and stuff you have to remember is a lot better than this whole kind of attribute cycle system they have going on. I can't stress enough how bad of a system it is, and yeah, sometimes you can lose run. You could have the best team in the game completely whaled out, even maybe in like a couple months time, and still lose just because you don't get that card over and over again. Obviously, using a team where everyone has single target, or at least a team that has full attack cards, surely does help. Matrona, there's a couple runs where you end up getting that taunt card over and over again, and it just ends up completely killing the run. End up spending quite a bit of time in this first phase, but looks like we're finishing him off, getting into the next one. Always important, obviously, to build up the second half of the melee passive. That's one of the main things. Also, in this final floor, there are a couple phases that have the buff removal, which ends up really hurting as well. We still managed to build up enough buffs for the final phase. You also want to try and build up a gold melee single target card and have your Escanor ultimate ready going into that final phase, because it is pretty much every turn the deer has an AoE ult removal card, which pretty much deems it impossible to get ultimates. You can get extremely lucky and have that effect not be applied, but not saying it's really not something worth gambling. Going through this fairly slow actually compared to some of my more recent runs, getting a lot more comfortable with the Jormungandr surely helps, and actually substituting out Meliodas for a character with one of the types on the actual attribute wheel, one of the blue, red or green types, really helps proc her passive a whole lot more. Most of these turns we don't even have the full effect of Jormungandr, just because, once again, not comfortable with the character yet, and having the dark type really doesn't help as well. Also stuff like that extra taunt card from Matrona makes it hard to go like full turns with the full effect. Clearing up this second phase though, fairly easy, and same thing with floor 2. Phase 3 of floor 3 is going to be super tanky to kind of give you that time to prepare for the final phase. And I think at that, we've talked about pretty much everything I want to talk about for the deer. Once again, we do have a couple more deer videos coming out. If you guys have any team suggestions, by all means let me know. I'm really trying to pump out a whole bunch of videos at this point because I've talked about it a couple times, but I'm going away and not going to be here for pretty much the whole of next week. So really trying to get that stuff sorted. New Tamiya looks so far. I'm glad I'm not missing out on that. Or who knows, they could push it a week earlier, but I doubt it with how Netmarble is. We should have been caught up to the JP version ages and ages ago, and it still hasn't happened. Hopefully with the Slime rerun, maybe they could do something. They haven't really talked about it in any of like their developer notes as well, which is a little unfortunate. It's been actually a little while since I've gone ahead and fully read some of the developer notes. Let's see how much damage you can do with the melee ult. Really think about my turns here. As you can see, building up the melee cards, that's one of the more important things. Then just praying that you have the right cycle going into that 4th phase. I do believe we actually end up having to do that because with the amount of cards you want to hold, getting into the phase can be a little bit difficult. I really want to hold on to the Jormungandr card as well because the damage increase is going to be a huge help. I think I actually pop it a turn early in this one. I'm not sure if that's this one or one of the other ones, but because you get the 2 turns of the damage boost, I end up popping it to kill the 3rd phase, and then we can use it for the 1st turn in the 4th phase. Card deletion on Matrona as well can make it really difficult. Because yeah, we're guaranteed to kill in this turn, and there's no Matrona cards, so we're pretty much just betting on the fact that we'll get one. No Jormungandr ult. Oh, well, sorry, we're using the Jormungandr ult, so we're not going to have it in that 4th phase, which was how I remembered it. I think we just managed to kill here, like, the slightest amount of, just a tiny bit less damage, and we wouldn't have made it through. Very lucky there. And some pretty good passives. Pretty much only one passive that we missed out on, which was the Purple Eye. Could have been a little bit better, but perfect passives. Going through the cycle here, you guys know how this 4th phase works. It's pretty much have to do the same thing every time, especially with this kind of team. And if you guys do have any trouble, team building, stuff like that, by all means ask in the comment section down below. More than happy to help out with that. And at this point, the run's kind of done. We end up getting the extra Matrona card, and you guys know how it works from here. So glad Jormungandr is finally in the game. I don't believe tomorrow's video will be another deer video. Probably end up doing a PvP video of sorts. Really wish Jormungandr could be used in PvP. Can't have her passive working in PvP because she would be way too broken. I feel like if it did work in PvP, she probably would end up shifting the entire meta and Slank would revolve around her. In saying that, Trader Meliodas is just so strong. So hard to have units next to him and have them look as impressive as he is. In this run as well, we are using the damage reduction artifact set, which I will end up changing for the Pneumatic Beast battle in some of these later runs as well, but there we go. 3rd and final floor complete. That just about does it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please hit the like button, subscribe. Really means a lot to me, and I'll see you guys for some more Grand Cross content.